Hello, everybody out there. When is it time to get divorced? Or how do you know, or what do you do when you're questioning yourself about that? So that's what we're going to talk about today on episode 167. So if you're ready, let's get started.
Hey Jeff.
Hey Doreen, how are you?
I'm good.
Looking beautiful again as always.
Thank you, sweetie. We had a nice night last night. We went and saw, oh my gosh, it was so much fun.
It was so fun.
We went and saw at the Kravis Center Shrek the musical. And I have to tell you, it was such a good time.
It was.
Wasn't it? I thought that the singing was amazing, the theatrics were over the top, the story and the way in which they presented it.
Right,
they had all
right.
these little funny innuendos, and it was really well done. It was a good time, unexpected.
And I think you had mentioned to me, I have never seen you watch something so intensely.
I know, because you were like glued to it.
I was having such a good time watching
It was
it.
so much fun. I want to go back. Today we're going to go see a band called Southern Blood with my sister Diane and her boyfriend Albert. And we're into southern music.
Southern rock.
Country music.
Well, it's actually Southern rock.
Yeah, it is.
It's not country music, it's Southern rock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we like all kinds of music.
We do.
Anyhow, so today we're going to talk about when it's time to get divorced. And before we started this, I sat down, I looked at Jeff, and I looked at the paper that, the outline that we had collaborated on. And then he took it and ran with it. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Yeah, these things seem kind of obvious. And so we'll go through some of these things that you might be experiencing if your marriage is in trouble, you're thinking about divorce, or maybe your marriage just has run its course. And that's what I want to talk about, that a failed marriage is really subjective, because there were so many good times, good years in a marriage. So just because something ends, it's time to move on.
It served its purpose.
In anything in life.
Right.
It's not even serving a purpose. It was beautiful, it was special, it had ups, it had downs, because that's a human experience. There is no perfect marriage.
Yeah.
There is no perfect person.
Perfect anything.
There's no perfect anything. So of course marriage is both good and bad and ups and downs. But anyhow.
I think this is just maybe an eye opener for you to maybe validate some of your feelings.
The signals, as they say.
The signals might be validation, yes.
Yeah. So we can talk about this. So one that's pretty obvious, but maybe it's been happening throughout your marriage anyhow, even when things are good, is a lack of respect.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to explain what it is, but basically dismissing or rejecting each other's feelings, thoughts, boundaries, those types of things. And being a divorce attorney, I see a lot of this. Respect yourself, please, people. Don't let other people treat you this way. I see it all the time. I just had a woman recently, has no money. Her husband will not let her leave the house without tracking her.
Wow.
Okay? And, has nothing to her name because he controls everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the children, same thing with the children. He can supposedly, this is what she tells me,
Right.
controlling the children in the same way. I think there's 3 young children, just very, very controlling, and to the point of having to know where they are every minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think that's a lack of respect.
Yeah.
Respecting, respecting yourself.
I was just going to say that.
Right.
You hit it right on the head when you said when you accept people who don't respect you, it's lacking self-respect.
And that probably might be a time to think, am I ready for divorce?
Right.
I know one of the things that you don't have on your list, but I want to mention it.
What's that?
Because I've experienced this personally, and it's not here.
Lack
When I
of
knew
emotional connection?
No, you have that down here. You have something about that down here.
Okay.
But when you just no longer care about caring. Does that make sense?
It's on here.
Really?
Yeah.
Where is that?
It's I believe it's on the next page where it says it's wait a minute, where is is it? Where is it?
Uh,
Can you
well-
pause it for a second?
No, I can't pause it.
You can't pause it?
No,
Okay.
we're just gonna come back to it.
How very cool
No,
is
no,
that?
let's do
We'll
that.
get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Okay, but let me finish.
Go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts.
Wow, we're full of energy because we're we're recording this and ready to go out on a Saturday night. So that's how much we love you guys. We love doing this, and this is going to fit in, and we're happy to do it.
Right.
And we're like so looking forward to saying what we want to say today. We're trying to get it all in really quickly, but when you stop caring about trying in the relationship,
Right.
you know, and you start thinking about, but what if, what would it look like if I was single again? What would it be like? You start really spending a lot of time, I guess it is on
So
here,
daydreaming.
I don't call it daydreaming.
Right.
Daydreaming is not what we teach in coaching.
Right.
Daydreaming has a place in fairy tales and things like this. I was just having the same issue with somebody that was writing some of my social media stuff, and I'm like, we coach a certain way. It's not wishing and hoping. Those things all sound beautiful and nice, but if you want something in life, the goal is, and the way to get it is to just get down and get it.
Right.
It's not about hopes and dreams. I mean, those are beautiful things that we can all have, and they feel warm and fuzzy, but you have to make things
Well, I
happen.
think we replace goals with goals and action plans.
Yeah.
Because hopes and dreams, or you can hope and dream your life away.
Yeah, but Jeff,
Taking action on your goals and setting realistic, concrete goals, that's where you're going to end up getting things accomplished.
of course, but a lot of the people that are listening to us, they may be stuck in a marriage, thinking about time, if it's time to get divorced, which is supposed to be the podcast topic.
Right, and it is.
And it is. And they might be paralyzed where they are, or think they are paralyzed.
Mhm.
So you're talking about someone really that already has the goals. And what I'm saying is these people, when it's time to go through divorce, they're really in that where do I go stage. Like, because you're not going to go as a partnership, and that's a much different goal setting than if you're going to be a single now moving forward towards your goals. So for today's topic, I think that if you're thinking about divorce, you're kind of at that crossroad. It might be even hard for you to set goals because you're not knowing, is it going to be just me because maybe I want to be divorced, or maybe he said he wants to, or is it going to be us?
Yeah. Well, I think that's why you hire us. to help you not determine that, but to set your goals once you have
Well,
determined
not
it.
just us. Any good coach,
Right.
that is into goal setting and figuring out what you want in life and all that, which is mindset, thought work, a lot of thought work that we do. So yes.
Yes.
But
Okay.
anyhow,
And one of the most important things I think there is in a relationship is intimacy, physical contact. I mean, the ability to show your love to somebody. And I think that lack of that is kind of the next thing on here.
well, that is the next one.
Well, I know.
We're gonna have to bullet point this, or
Well,
we're
that's what
never
I'm
gonna
talking
get through
about.
it.
Well, I'm talking about it now because it's the next one.
Are you trying to tell me something?
Yeah, it's time to move on. We got a concert to go to.
No.
No. And you know
Lack-
what? Go ahead.
No, but lack of intimacy.
Yeah. that's a
You
big
just
one.
don't want the person touching you. You're not into the romance, the stuff, and
Or you do and they don't.
right. And so that's probably
A
a
big
true
sign.
sign.
It's a big sign. And then I think number 3 was what you were talking
Yeah.
about. The lack of investment. You're not totally into it. You're not vested into the
The
relationship
partnership,
anymore.
right?
Yeah.
The partnership is breaking up potentially, and so you don't want to put any more time, money, and effort into it.
Right.
Just like a business, right? You're kind of like, wait a second, what's going on
Yeah.
here?
Exactly.
Lack of communication, I think that's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean, I agree with that one big time.
Or if there is communication, it's negative, it's, accusatory, it's not nice, right?
Yeah, or you don't necessarily agree on anything or the vital things that are so important.
That's the next one.
Well, I mean, when you communicate, I know. We're kind of,
How about we just announce the next one? before we
Okay, and
just
the next
roll?
one is. lack of agreement.
Okay.
Okay, you know, and I think the vital issues like maybe about the children, or what you make for dinner, or where you want to live, those type of things. If you don't agree on these type of things, that's a big sign.
Yeah, I think that when a lot of marriages are breaking down, they don't agree on what they're gonna have for dinner tonight. Like, you're talking bigger level, and I'm like, they ain't agreeing about much.
Well, I don't mean what they're
right?
having for dinner. I mean, like, you want to be a vegan and I want to eat at McDonald's.
Right, Jeff, and what I'm suggesting is maybe the conversations have gotten to a point where they can't agree on anything. Like, yours are higher level.
Right.
Right?
Right. Okay, what's next?
Well, obviously abuse.
Are we agreeing on something here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Wait a second. Is somebody taking like a checklist? Because I don't know. Is it time to be?
Oh, wait a minute.
Are we headed towards divorce?
Hey.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Abuse.
Yeah.
That one, no,
That's a
let's get
biggie.
serious. I mean, if there is physical abuse on any level, it is not okay. And please talk to the authorities, get help. There's lots of available resources for that. You certainly don't want to stay in a relationship, and you should not stay in a relationship that has any kind of physical abuse.
Or mental abuse.
Okay, but physical, I wanted to give that disclaimer. Get help.
Right.
Okay, I've seen personally as a divorce attorney too many things that can go wrong when you don't. Okay, so that's that. Emotional abuse. I think that happens in a lot of unfortunate, as a breakdown of marriages when there's emotional abuse. But I think like even what I was telling the listeners earlier about the gentleman let's not call him a gentleman, the husband who is so controlling of his entire family,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a form of abuse.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely, being very controlling.
Manipulative, controlling.
Yeah.
Infidelity, obviously. We gotta run through these things.
Okay.
Financial distress, your spouse's financial decisions are causing you distress. Toxic criticism.
Yes.
I'm reading the list.
Yes. You're often criticized, and typically it's unfair.
Yes.
It's very one-sided.
Well, I really don't think that criticizing has any. If you were doing the criticizing, I think this works both ways. Let me slow down for a minute. If you're criticizing your spouse a lot, it's not just about being criticized, but if you are the criticizer, it is a sign potentially to get divorced. Something's wrong. You don't like this person the way they are. That's a bigger lesson for another day, where we talk about the model, which we've done several episodes on, and go back and listen to that. But
The manual, you mean.
the manual, I'm sorry. There's a lot of criticism going on with people who are trying to change their spouse into something that they are not.
Right.
And it will not happen. You will exhaust yourself. So you have to decide, am I going to stay in this relationship with this person being who he is or she is, exactly as they are, all the good, all the bad, and everything in between, and can I live with that? So I think a lot of these topics that we're discussing, it
Mhm.
works on both sides.
Right.
Be open to the idea, and this is where coaching comes in play, that you may be the one who is doing what may not be considered the good act, the lack of respect, the lack of commitment or communication, the abuse even, the emotional abuse. If you are doing those things, it's probably a signal to get divorced as well.
Probably looking at the list, I'm sure that they can look at the list and say, oh, that one's mine, oh, that one's yours, this one's mine, and they probably each have their own part. So if, let's say, for an example, someone's being lacking the respect they deserve, then they're probably not wanting to be intimate with them. So some people, they may not want to communicate because the other side communicates disrespectfully. So I think that every person on this list may be a part of it.
Of course, Jeffrey. Welcome to the reality of the world.
Well, that's what I'm telling our listeners, that it's
Well,
not just
Jeff.
one-sided.
Jeff,
Yes.
I hate to tell you something, but you've been around me for 15 years as a divorce attorney, okay? And you've been divorced before, and and you know my divorce situation
Right.
and all the things, okay?
Right. And
It is never just one person that causes the breakdown of a marriage.
my point exactly.
Okay, it is always, I don't care, even, I mean, maybe I would only suggest if there is some physical abuse, something like this, you know, of that level, but I'm talking about the rest that are not like that. We're all human. We all have done the good and the bad on this list.
Right.
Been the victim and been the person who has, you know,
The contributor.
the contributor.
Yes. Okay.
So anyhow, I think, you know, it's not just looking at what the other person has done and how you might fall into this. It's also what you are doing,
Yes.
potentially.
Exactly.
So you don't have to live like that. You know, there is another life, and sometimes marriages just don't work out, and that's okay. It served its purpose. There were beautiful times. I consider it's not a breakdown of the marriage necessarily. It's just a time to move past.
Well, that's why we say a lot of the next chapter and writing of reinventing yourself, because it is a time of rebirth.
Correct.
You know, and you know, some of the things that we're talking about, I think one point that we should make is nobody deserves this. So I know a lot of people
Right.
think that, oh, I deserve this, so I put up with it.
Right.
So there is a better life.
Well-
And most times, you know, in your divorce, probably situations, and with my clients, grass is greener. The next chapter is beautiful. The next,
Yeah,
it is a nice, rebirth, you know, nice truth.
Well, it is, but I don't know, recently, you know, there have been a lot of people that I've spoken to in consulting. When somebody consults with a lawyer before they're gonna move forward with a divorce or they're considering it, I have had a record number of those, and with very abusive relationships. You know, people that are just the victims of abuse, of emotional abuse.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're talking about, and it's been going on for years. You know, it's been going on for years. It's just been somewhat tolerated. And so I think in a lot of these situations, if you have a pattern of being with someone that falls into one of these categories, like lack of respect or emotional abuse, there's probably some back work that needs to be done on you as well.
Right.
Because
Totally agree.
there are patterns that we see, and we are not therapists, but as a divorce attorney and as coaches, Jeff coaching, we see a pattern of people who are reporting abuse and then being abused or disrespected, or you know, one side is controlling of the finances. That's another thing that happens a lot with divorce. You know, the financial issues come up. People talk about that, and then you find that they come from a background where their father was very controlling with dollars with the mother, and they grew up in a family where money was a big issue. So the kids had to really work for the money, and the father was very like, you can't, you know, have this cookie. You got to go like, you know, wash down, you know, 10 cars or something. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like some ridiculous thing. And I'm like, now she's with a man who totally holds money from her.
Yeah.
Right?
Like a father figure.
No, but uses money as the abuse.
Right.
I mean, there's so much of this, and you know, my hope is that people are strong enough to really think about if it's better off to get out of these relationships, if they're strong enough.
Right.
You know, because it's so easy just to stay in a marriage because it's convenient and it's known, and the unknown is so scary. Especially, I think, for people that are dealing with some of these serious
That comes
issues.
up later on.
Yeah.
You know, when it talks about being scared. All right, avoidance. You know,
Yeah, I think
you've kind of hit that one already.
yeah.
I know you don't like the word, so let's talk about
We
when you
talked
start
about that.
kind of
Daydreaming.
imagining yourself as single. Imagine yourself out there in the dating
Right.
scene today. Well, that's scary too, but sometimes I guess that's one of the signs that you're kind of checked out of your marriage.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, at the beginning,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh, this is a big one. Ugh. If I got a dime for every time I heard this,
Right.
I'm staying for the children.
Staying for the children.
I want to get divorced. I understand my rights. I'll be fine. I get it. But I'm going to stay for the children.
I was guilty of that. You know, when I promised myself as soon as Spencer was able to speak and let me know that he was going to be okay when he was with his mother, that's when I was going to file for divorce.
Yeah, but your circumstance was different, Jeff. You had a situation in which you had a young child that could not communicate what was going on with mom, and there were serious concerns.
Well, that could be situations that are out there with our listeners.
Yes, and that I think you stay with the children. I've had those conversations. It depends on the facts.
Yeah.
But I have counseled people to stay until the child is of age, can communicate, because the court system is very iffy on what. It's very hard to prove somebody is abusing alcohol and drugs.
Right.
It's a very hard thing, for example, to prove. And so, because people usually don't do this kind of stuff in front of others, and so and then witnesses don't want to come forward, and so it's extremely hard to prove. So I tell them, if you have young children and you have something like your situation, you would stay.
And I think in every single one of these examples that we're going through, I like the listeners to keep in mind that we know that every situation can be different.
Absolutely.
I mean, so don't take what we're saying as this is what you should do or this is what you shouldn't do.
This was your experience.
Right.
Your
exactly.
experience.
So every listener out there has a different experience.
Absolutely. They should seek counsel
Right.
from an attorney in their area, and also the therapist. But when I hear and I see people that do not have those situations, they have cordial relationships with their spouse, they get along, they even enjoy each other's company, but someone wants to get divorced and move on, and that's okay. And people stay because of the children, and they make that decision. And that can be something to question as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that there, in a lot of situations, and it may be not as extreme as mine or as cordial as your example, but I think in most cases the kids are much better off after the divorce.
Well, wait, we're not therapists.
We're not therapists.
So I'm going to report what I've seen and what I've heard from therapists generally is that children will learn the type of relationship that you show them, and they will think that is, I'm talking in simple terms, not their terms, okay. And they will want to find that consciously or subconsciously, right? They may fall into that pattern again.
Yeah, very similar to the woman that.
So when you're in a relationship, a marriage, where there is yelling, anger, frustration, lack of love, parents doing their own thing, no time together really as husband and wife with the family. It's like moms with the kids and dads with the kids kind of thing.
Right.
Maybe there is even known adultery going on, going out a lot, whatever it is. The
Kids are smart.
Kids are seeing all this and they're thinking, well, mom and dad still seem somewhat okay. They don't seem like they're totally happy and want to be around each other, but they seem okay with each other. Maybe this is the way marriage is supposed to be.
Right. Or the example that you did give.
Well, let me finish the thought on that.
Okay, well, I'm adding to the thought. Go ahead.
The thought is, well, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, she grew up in with a family, parents that the dad took control of the money, and now she's allowing it to happen to her as well.
Right, but this is something more subtle. I'm talking about the relationships, the marriages that stay together, and they're relatively nice together, but they're really distant, and there is some anger and some underlying, and the kids, and parents spending time doing a lot of separate stuff.
Right.
But it seems nice, okay.
Yeah.
So the kids, the point being that the kids are learning. This is what the therapists have told me. that is what marriage looks like. So they look for that. They're okay being in relationships in their future where it's just okay, because that's what they saw for their parents.
Right.
So if people are staying for the children, what I like to recommend them to do is go talk to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Do some research, look online. There's so much great material on this from really amazing experts, but then go talk to somebody about your facts and ask them, should I stay for the children? And go to a children psychologist to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
You will gain a lot of insight on that.
Good example.
I think sometimes people always use that as an excuse. It feels good. Well, I'm staying for the children.
Yes, I'm making a sacrifice.
I'm a good mom. I'm staying for the children.
Right.
Or a good dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's admirable. But it's really because there's fear there, probably, that needs to be further worked on. Okay. What else?
The last one on the list is that marriage counseling just did not work.
Yeah.
You worked on your, you've tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed and tried.
Yeah, you know what, Jeff? You're gonna get me down. I'm gonna go down that road.
All right, bring it on.
Ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You know what I think about marriage counseling?
I do not.
We have to discuss this. Maybe we haven't done a podcast on this. Here's my take on marriage counseling. Okay, some marriage counselors, and I have said this before in my podcast, somewhere along the road. My take only, good, bad, or indifferent. Most, not all, marriage counselors do something like this. Jeff, could you please tell me the things that you don't like about Doreen, or the things you would like for her to change, or the things that bother you, or the things that you would, prefer? Use any adjective.
I wouldn't change a thing.
I love you too. But no, so, and then they say to the wife, Doreen, so tell us the things that upset you about Jeff, and blah, 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 blah. And then the therapist try to get you to compromise or to work on a few things, right?
Okay.
And they might give you some exercises to do. But people will always be who they're going to be. Very few times do people shift to be what the other person thinks they want them to be. Okay, they may make a shift, but how do I say this? I want to articulate this carefully. They may make a shift to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, the vision of the shift is in the eye of the beholder, who has this vision of what that change should be.
Right.
And they may not be aligned. Could be a small change that this person made. Maybe it's, I don't know, pick something.
Won't take out the trash.
Oh no, I think most people hopefully have bigger issues than this.
Bigger issues than this?
Give me the financial issue. Let's take a financial issue.
The husband doesn't make any money.
Okay.
And doesn't contribute.
There's an income issue.
Income issue, okay.
All right. So let's say that wife is the breadwinner, and
Right.
wife is, and husband is trying to contribute and making an effort, but he's just not getting there.
Right.
And wife thinks maybe in her mindset, he's just not working hard enough. He's not focused. He's not really dedicated. He's putting some time in. He's doing some small things, but he's not really making the effort. And she's over it. And they go to marriage counseling, right?
Right.
And the marriage counselor says, Jeff, what do you think about that? Because she explains it. And not Jeff, I'm sorry, the hypothetical person.
Okay. Yes. Well, there's other Jeffs in the world. Okay.
And then this hypothetical guy says, yeah, I could give some more effort. I could do this. I could do that. And she's all happy. And this is a big issue in their marriage. And so she goes home, and then he starts to improve. But he's only improving on what he understands that level to be. Mm-hmm. They haven't really articulated it very well.
Okay.
And so she has a thought that he's going to get up earlier every day, and he's going to work until 8 o'clock, and on Saturdays he's not going golfing anymore. He's going to work all day instead, and he's going to really put the time in, and he's going to do all these things. She has it all listed out in her mind. We call it the manual.
Right.
And he thinks what he's doing, which is, let's say he is getting up earlier, but he's stopping right at 5, and he's still going to golf on Sundays, and they're not aligned yet. And so she continues to get upset. The point being that people generally don't change that much. We want them to change, but what science and what therapists tell us is they really don't shift that much.
Question for you.
Yes. So then you have to just accept that person as who they are, stay married with them, and decide to be at peace with that or move on.
Well, that was definitely my question. Are we talking about the other person changing, or are we talking about the other person changing their acceptance of the person?
Both.
Okay.
I think it has to be both. It has to be the person. We've talked about this, Jeff. This is
I know we
part of
have.
our coaching when we talk about the manual.
Yes, I know.
Is that people don't generally change. So we have to accept them as they are. And I know a lot of listeners don't want to believe that, but it's true. People just really do not change. Now, there are exceptions, of course. Like, let's say somebody has a substance abuse issue and they go to rehab and they really give it 100% and they are sober. They are sober. And that was the major issue in their marriage. That was a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
That was the major thing that had to change. That probably is something that is 100%, well, we know it's 100% doable because people fortunately become sober every day and maintain sobriety.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing. So, but most people are not going to change all that much. And so look at your husband, look at your wife. This episode is about when it's time to get divorced, and say to yourself, number one, if I met this man today or this woman today and I knew everything I know, and we were just sitting in a bar across the way, looked his way, she looked overhead at him, would you date him again? First question, okay? Guess what?
What?
My answer with you is yes.
Oh.
It is, 100%. I had to do that, I almost got a tear.
Oh.
Because I would. I imagined you sitting there, everything after 15 years, and I would still go on a date with you.
Oh, would you marry me though?
That would be another decision.
All right.
And then the second
I asked for that
and then
one.
the second question is, now you're in your current time with your spouse, and you're thinking, there's all this stuff going on. So I want you to assume that your spouse, he's going to stay, she's going to stay exactly as she is now. She's going to continue to do all those things that bother you. He's going to continue to not do all the things you want him to do. And when he does, it's wrong.
Is there a question coming here?
And would you stay? Would you stay?
Yeah.
Are you okay staying?
Right.
And not complaining about it anymore? Not complaining about it anymore. That's the difference.
That's the difference. That's the acceptance part.
That's the acceptance part, which I'm working on. I am in the working on it stage.
And let me just finish one thing. Other thing about the manual is the last part of the manual is that you base your happiness on what the other person does. So you're expecting them to do it, and whether they do it, whether they do it or not, is whether you're going to be happy or not.
Exactly.
So that's why the manual works, because most of the people that have a manual on them don't even realize that they have a manual.
Right.
You know, you put this imaginary manual on them that this is what you should do, and I base my happiness on whether you do it or not.
Yeah.
So that's the big.
I think we should do, or at least you should do, a webinar just on the manual. It is the most creative coaching. I think one of the best coaching tools we have.
Yeah.
Because when you get this down and you really understand it, and it takes hard work, I tell you, every single day.
Say that from experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but when you get it, there's this peace that comes over you, and just realizing that you don't have to try to fix everything, that you can just be accepting, or you can choose to leave.
Right.
And that under either circumstance, it's okay, and it'll be better than expecting someone to change and being in this state of, it's like this overwhelming, I don't even know, anxiety state that you live in.
You feel stuck.
And what you said, and just to drive it home, because I know we're over 30 minutes, and our last episode I think was rather long too, but I just love these topics and I'm just so passionate about them, is what you said, which is, let's go back to our couple that was in the waiting room, or I'm sorry, the therapy room.
Yes.
They had financial issues. He was not pulling his weight.
Right.
Okay. And I went through that whole scenario. She is betting all her happiness that when he does make all that money, she's going to be so happy. Everything is just going to be rainbows and unicorns and all that.
Yeah.
And I have a rude awakening for her.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that way. That part of it will be better. He'll make the money and you'll have a bit of relief. But I promise you, something else will
There'll be
take
something
its place.
else.
It's kind of like that thing when you lose weight. If anybody out there has lost weight or gotten into like a major shape, you think like, oh, if I only could weigh, pick the number 125, if I could get down to that and be solid, everything would be amazing, or hey, if I could lose 10 pounds, it would be all great. And then you lose it and it's like, why don't I feel so good? That's the same thing.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's like you feel good about your weight, but then there's something else. You thought it was going to make your life so much better.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I keep going.
Well, I
down-
just want to
down
go,
rabbit
the
hole.
last thing I want to, the next part I really would like to tell, because it's kind of good news for everybody,
What?
that to be in a successful marriage or to know whether you're done or not, it's good to argue. It's when you don't ever argue because
Oh my
you've
gosh!
checked
Now
out.
you just went into a whole other subject. We're gonna have to do that.
Is that another episode?
Why don't we do that in the next
The
podcast?
next podcast. Okay.
No, this is 160. What 8?
This is 167.
We're gonna make 168 about arguing.
Part 2.
The good and the bad of it.
We'll do. Well,
The
we'll
good and
do.
the bad of it, and how to do it.
Ooh.
How to do it
Yeah.
with respect and kindness. But yeah,
Okay, that's a great idea.
yeah. So let's do that. Ooh, we got our work cut out for us.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta get that one ready.
Let's go practice.
Okay. I don't want to
Anyway,
argue.
everybody, have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to follow us on social media for more empowering content, tips, and inspiration to help you thrive after divorce. And if you're ready to take the next step in your journey, don't miss out on our free 30-minute coaching session. It's a great opportunity to get personalized guidance and support for wherever you are in your divorce journey. Just visit the link in our description to book your appointment.